Okay.
It's
And Chance, take it away.
awesome. Thank you. Howdy, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to be talking about zines and libraries. Um, and to give you kind of an idea of what we're going to be talking about today, kind of my game plan, what to expect. We're going to do a little bit of an icebreaker. That's if you're able to jump onto a Padlet. I'm going to be sharing a link momentarily, and just have a few questions just to get you thinking about it. I'm also going to just do kind of an introduction, and explain kind of myself, and then also about zines if you don't know what a zine is. And then I'm also going to spend some time sharing my zine history, just kind of what my journey with zines has looked like, and then sharing my lessons learned along the way. I will say those two sections, my history and my lessons learned, are I've kind of shuffled them together, so it's not like one and then the other. I'm talking about them together. Then I'm just going to spend a very short time, as time allows, just showing you how easy it is to make a really quick zine, with a single sheet of paper. So if you happen to be in an opportunity to grab a blank sheet of paper, feel free to do that, but don't feel like you have to. I'm going to share the video where it's literally a 60-second video on how to create a zine. But if you have a sheet of paper and scissors handy, feel free to do so. You can follow along, but don't feel like you have to. Then we're going to I'm going to give you some time to work on a collaborative zine, a digital zine, together, because I want us to kind of commemorate our time and things that we've learned and ideas we have. And then at that time, I'm also just going to open the floor up for questions. So the majority of it's just going to be me sharing my story, and then there'll be time for questions and idea sharing. So if you've had zine success, or if you've got ideas on how you might want to use zines in your libraries, we can talk about it. And so that is the game plan. So I'm going to go to the Padlet. You can go to this URL, but let me copy and paste that into the chat. I will say that you need to be singular with the zine, not plural, because that's a different URL that goes elsewhere. So make sure you're following the link. Um, and I'm going to open up that Padlet. And that URL is over on the right here. You can also, if you have a device, you want to scan QR code and join it with another device, you are welcome to do that as well. I've got a few questions here. One is, how would you define a zine? I will say that is the question that I get the most from students when they first come up, and like if they are talking about zines or we're talking about zines, they're like, what is it? Like, most people haven't heard about it. So I'm just curious, have you heard about it? If you do, kind of how would you define it? To me, that's one of the hardest questions to answer about zines, but I'll um, answer it later. But I want to give you all an opportunity. Um, and then, have you used zines before? If you've used zines, I would love to hear different ways you've used them. It doesn't even have to be in libraries. And then, um, beyond zines, I'm just curious, what are you an expert at? So just think about, like, if you were going to create something, maybe, what could you, like, today, like if you had to make a zine today about something, what would be one that you could do? And then I'm also just to me, like, the reason I kind of fell into zines was creativity. I love creativity. And I love the creative elements that zines can bring, to conversations. And so it doesn't have to be connected to zines, but what creative things have you done in your library? I think it's a great opportunity. We're together in a room, Zoom room. That's what conferencing is all about. So sharing ideas. So if you have any, and this Padlet will be up and open for folks to peruse and come back to, and add to. So please feel free to do that throughout the presentation. If you want to have that up as well, you can be adding to it. But I just want to give you all just a few minutes, a minute or two, and feel free to bounce back and forth between different questions and such. Ooh, but lots of fun little zines at a zine fest. That's cool. Um, Made and shared zines. Seen them, but not made one yet. Awesome. We can knock that off your bucket list today, hopefully. Seen them made as a way to display students' research findings. Ooh, that's cool. Fan-made love. I'm used to fanzines, collaboration of fan art, fan fiction, etc., to celebrate a common love of a subject. A mini homemade magazine to get out info. Yeah. One-off short magazine for a small subject. Indie self-published short form publication, traditionally handmade and a magazine booklet style. Ooh, troubleshooting second mind for fixing. I should have forced authors so I know who to come to or go to. Um, a little bit of a lot of things, but I'm not a master of any. I love it. That there's a reason my first degree is interdisciplinary studies. My next is Master of Information. I like to know a little bit about all the things. um, Help plan and brainstorm for our first makers fair. That's cool. Button making designs. I love the creativity. Our student workers came up with some really cool button designs yesterday. It looked almost like as I have my Whataburger cup, it looked like the little Whataburger number things, but they made it like Aggie and maroon. It's gorgeous. Display. I love displays. We were talking about displays in a previous presentation on outreach, and someone was saying they didn't get to see the interactions of the users. And I remember I had been trying to do displays for years, and when I finally got to do one, like I happened to be walking by not long after we had deployed it and got to see someone like walking up to it and like they took a book and walked away, and like I was like, oh my gosh, the high that gave me, like one user interaction was enough to make doing displays for the rest of my life worth it. All right, well, thank you all for adding to that. Feel free to keep adding. If there's time at the end, I might bounce back to it, but I'm going to return to the presentation. And I want to introduce myself because I haven't done that yet. My name is Chance Medlin. Here on campus, I go by Chance the Librarian as much as I can. I've tried to brand myself as that. And if you're interested in continuing the conversation or just following along some of the things that I do here at the libraries, I'm on Twitter, or X as it's called now, at Library Medlin, and on Instagram at Chance the Librarian. And just to kind of give you my history, I think it kind of informs my journey with zines, and just kind of let you know who's talking. I earned my bachelor's of science in interdisciplinary studies, which was elementary education here at Texas A&M in 2007. Whoop. I taught first grade for 1 year. I survived a year, and then I decided to come back to campus and give back in the form of a beautiful career at Texas A&M University, which I've been here at the library since 2008. And I decided to go back to school because I wanted to become a librarian. And so I earned my Master of Information from Rutgers in 2018. And I am currently the Learning and Student Engagement Librarian at Texas A&M in College Station. So I think y'all had lots of great definitions for zines. So if you're here and are not familiar with zines, y'all had some really beautiful ones. I am going to share a very quick video. To me, this is just a really great intro. Like I say, to me, it's a hard thing to explain without just showing, but I think this person did a phenomenal job. And it's the video I often share in my workshops to help the participants understand what it is. And I'm going to stop share real quick because I don't think when I shared that I chose the best option. So let me do that just a moment. Sweet. All right. Take two.
What is a zine? Merriam-Webster Dictionary puts it this way: a non-commercial, often homemade or online publication, usually devoted to specialized and often unconventional subject matter. In short, a zine is something that you make yourself about whatever you want it to be about, even if it's super weird or unique to you as a person. People will often make zines about topics or communities that mean a lot to them, such as feminism and human rights. However, you can make a zine, for example, about something you're a fan of, referred to as a fanzine, or even a zine that's just about you and your life, called a personal zine, or perzine for short. Artists will also create zines to distribute their work, whether they're illustrators, photographers, writers, whatever you can fit into the pages of a zine goes. Someone who creates zines is called a zinester. The term zine came from the 1920s or 30s, when sci-fi geeks would create zines about themselves and share them with each other. Zine culture exploded in the 70s when the punk scene emerged. People would create music zines to draw more attention to bands they liked. Most zines are made by cutting and pasting pages together, photocopying them, and then binding them into a booklet, typically with staples. However, there are a lot of zines that are made with unconventional materials into unconventional shapes. And there are also digital zines. Basically, there are 0 rules here. Your zine can look however you want it to look. You don't necessarily have to be an artist to create a zine. All you really need is paper, a pen, and something to say. Hope you enjoyed the video. Next week, I'll be uploading episode 2, how to make your own zine. Subscribe to be notified when it goes.
All right. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what a zine is. I love that they said 0 rules. As a rule follower, that might be difficult, but I also kind of like the freedom that it gives. But yeah, so that's what a zine, that's what I'm talking about today when I say zines. It's I'll play that again. All right, so this is just an overarching view of my zine history. And kind of, I will say that I feel like I was introduced to them. I may have heard of them and seen them, I feel like on library Twitter before grad school a little bit, just different librarians that I followed. But I feel like I kept seeing it more and more pop up, and I didn't quite understand what it was, but I was seeing it and taking it in. And I think I heard about like zine libraries before I even heard about zines. Um, and then little by little, I kind of started to understand what they were. And I was drawn to that creative element to it, of that you could create it yourself, you could do it on anything. And it just, to me, there seemed to be ripe for opportunities using them. I will say that, as I said, I was a first grade teacher for a year. I feel like my general, like I've done instruction, my general kind of pedagogy that I slip into naturally is like creative pedagogy. I like to do integrate creativity anywhere and everywhere I can. And so I think that's why zines just made sense for me as something to explore. And so in 2020, um, we were getting ready for one of our human library events, and we had done it for a few years at that point. And we were really interested in like, how do we expand our human library and have other opportunities for participants um, beyond just checking out a single person, like a one-on-one. How can they also share their own stories? And so we kind of had, as they came in, they had the opportunity to fill out dry erase boards that had questions, but they could also sit down and create like a really quick zine. And so this is what I did. I kind of had a template that they could just sit down. If they wanted to spend 30 minutes, they could. If they wanted to spend 30 seconds, they could also still kind of add to a zine. And we had a few people that took us up on it. And to me, it was a nice kind of way to try it, and as part of a smaller thing, as part of a bigger event that was already successful. It wasn't a standalone. Um, and so the next thing that I did was we were trying to do something for Hispanic Heritage Month and offer something at the libraries. And their theme that year was talking about stories. And I was like, hey, let's do a zine making workshop. Let's try this. And so we did in October. And when I was creating this, I was like, wow, why is there such a big gap starting in March of 2020? What was going on in the world? This was one of our things kind of coming back in person. And as you notice, we were still masked in the picture, but the workshop was a success. It was part of the Hispanic Heritage Month offerings at the university, so we got a little marketing help there, and we had several folks show up. I think there was a class that was offering extra credit for folks to attend, so we had several people attending for that reason. And then my very first standalone zine workshop, I had they made an article in Texas A&M Today about it, and so I thought that was kind of cool that they brought someone out, they took a video and wrote it up. So I thought that was, early success. And when I when I was designing that workshop, I wanted, as librarians often do, we create a live guide. And so created a LibGuide there and just had like different places. I had the slides so that if they needed to get back to that, but also just like different inspirations, like here's some digital zines you can look at. Here's information that folks can just reconnect to. And what that guide has essentially become, I have that zine making workshops drop down where every time I have a new workshop, I kind of add my slides. And sometimes I will often find like specific resources, library resources that I can show off that make sense for that particular workshop. And so, but one thing that I did on that very first guide, I had a little statement on the zine making workshops tab, because at that point there was one that said, if you're interested in scheduling a zine making workshop for your organization or department, please contact, and I put my email address, or I asked them to submit an instruction request. Just putting that on there is just a kind of general like, hey, I'm interested in doing this, hoping that something would come of it. And something did. A few months later, I had a student reach out from our Asian Presidents Council, and they wanted to do a zine making workshop as part of their APITA Heritage Month celebrations. And so I was like, absolutely. We met, we talked about like, what do you want out of it? What can this look like for y'all? And over on the right, I've got some pictures of, there's one that someone did language of flowers, someone did it about their home country that they got to visit recently. And someone else was there from the TAMU Asian American Studies Initiative. They were trying to get the word out and trying to get more support for that initiative. And they started a zine there at the bottom. And to me, like, if you had asked me back when I first started zines in the libraries back in 2020, like big goals, big pie, like pie in the sky idea goals, what would be like the best results of zines? I would have told you like student orgs wanting to do something with the libraries and being able to create zines, and then kind of taking and running with it, and them being able to get their voices heard because they've created a zine. And this second zine workshop that I did, to me, has been the most successful by far. There were actually, I think I had maybe 1-2 tables. There weren't tons of people, but they were all super engaged, and they took it and ran with it, just as I had once only dreamed of. So my lesson learned there, my thing that I want y'all to get out of it is, if you put yourself out there, that little statement on the guide she found, and she put in an instruction request. She reached out to me through email, and we got that set up. That quickly became, the zine that was started in that workshop. She finished it. They put it through a copier. They took it to Copy Corner and got tons of beautiful color copies made. And that's the beauty of a zine, is you can do a single sheet of paper, design it out, and then run it through a copier and have tons of copies that you've made. And they tabled with that for their initiative. They used it on their socials. And to me, like and I just randomly walked by and saw them. I was like, oh my goodness. And I immediately recognized the zine, and I was just so excited to see that. And then they took it a step further, and they created their own, like totally produced by them. They asked folks in their community on campus to submit things for a collective collaborative zine that they had produced and printed beautifully. They had a huge launch party at the art galleries on campus. They invited me. That's a picture of me reading the first edition. They've now made it an annual thing where they'll have folks from the Asian community and a PETA community at large submit photography, poems, writings. And so it's just really beautiful to see that blossom and bloom over several years. And I've been really proud to kind of see how that, like, it was a little seed and it has definitely blossomed. Other things we've done, we were trying to come up with something to do for our first year experience. We wanted to invite our Hullabaloo students so all first year students on campus for a workshop, and we decided to do it in conjunction with Banned Books Week, and made a zine workshop and invited folks to come in. We printed out list of like the most common banned books from the past. I think we did like 20 years, what was available on ALA's website, and had that available, and that really created some conversations. We had printed out little book covers of a lot of the most common ones that they could integrate into their zines. And it was really fun to just kind of see the creativity of what people were passionate about when it comes to Banned Books Week. One thing that I did here was something that I've kind of done with, I would say, with exhibits in general. Anytime there's a new exhibit or special collections library Cushing, I'll go over and visit, and I'll often take pictures to like put on my social to try to show students, hey, this is what you can see at this new exhibit's up. But one thing I had done is I had learned that we have zines in our collection. And so I went over and talked to Jeremy Brett, our curator of that collection, and because I just wanted to wrap my mind around it, because I knew like if I understand it, I can explain it to others. So I went through, and he was really great. He pulled like a kind of a random sampling and let me look through. And I took a few pictures to add to a slide for that workshop. And in that workshop, I let people know, like, hey, like, you can create them, but also if you're interested, or if you want to see some inspiration, or if you have a fandom, we probably have a zine on one of your fandoms. And just kind of talked about our zine collections with that. So I just want to let you know that if you have zine collections in your libraries, don't forget about them. And that's like, if you're doing a workshop, you can also show off that collection, or if nothing else, do a shout out, a mention like in your slides. Then another way that we've used zines is on a few years ago for spring, they started doing a spring Howdy Week on campus. And we always do a huge open house in the fall for Howdy Week. And we're like, what kinds of things can we do in the spring? And so we decided to do kind of a maker's fair. So we had like button making, we had Legos, we had bookmark making. So there were lots of different kind of making things. And we had a zine making table, and many of these activities, because we wanted it to be really simple for them to come in, because it was during a class day, so that oftentimes we were getting traffic from people in between class. So we wanted to keep them short activities. So one of the things I did here was I have kind of my zine template for like a single page that they can fill in. But I also did just like single pages for a collective zine. So if you wanted to just like literally answer one question on a single page, then you're contributing to a zine, and you're a part of this. And so these were some of the humorous ones I loved. I love frogs. So when I saw the frog, it immediately became my favorite page. But they were like, best advice to give is go to your classes, no excuses. And then someone else said, Starbucks, use it. So I love that. Yay, frogs. Also, shout out to Guacamole that got shared in another session, a very adorable, I'm going to say the wrong kind of reptile. Can't remember, chameleon, I think. But yeah, it was adorable. I love the name Guacamole. All right, so like I said here, to me, one of the lessons learned is reducing barriers. I was doing a lot of workshops and like hoping people would come. And sometimes like just kind of getting the idea of what is a zine across is the hardest part. So I have examples, but I've kind of developed a template that I can use, and I can edit it really easily to match whatever the theme or the event is. But I can make it where it's really just they can sit down and fill it out. But I also have blank ones too. That way, if they want to completely design their own and go off script, that's cool too. So but the single page like this, what that became, let me see if I can pull up that example, is I made a collective zine. And I always like to let them know that this is what you're doing. This is part of a collective zine that I'm going to be sharing. And so I scanned them in, and we have ways for folks to be able to kind of to see that. And sometimes I just draw pictures, put a little smiley face. Someone got creative with stickers, but just showing that you can do a single page but still be a part of a bigger conversation. All right. And I will say, like, when you're creating a physical zine, the spacing, it took a little bit of testing out like how the printer would print and what settings and such. But for the most part, I've gotten it down, so now I can just kind of copy and redo it. But I will say that think about that. Granted, I wasn't using anything fancy like InDesign. I was using Google Docs. But all right, so those are some of I've got a few more lessons learned that I want to share, but those were some of my first few workshops that I wanted to share. Checking on my time. We did it again for Banned Books Week the next year for 2023, but that time I wasn't getting people registering. Like, no one was registering. We had some changes in our email distributions on campus where just we were not having luck getting the word out about things like that had previously worked because of changes on campus. And so that one I pivoted kind of last minute and switched it to a pop-up instead of an in-person. I did a pop-up. And what that means is, instead of like having it in a room where like people have registered and they come to that, I just went to the lobby, put a table out in the lobby of the library, and had all the supplies out there. And as people were walking by, I was like, hey, do you want to do a quick zine? And had way more people stop by there. I think one person had seen it on the calendar from the previous and found me, but they hadn't registered yet, and they found me because I had changed the signage on it. I'd notified, I'd made the change on our calendars and stuff. But I was really pleased and glad that I made that switch, because I went from having 0 to I think I had like 20 or so people stop by that time. So I was pleased, and I already had everything set up and ready to go for it. So it was a nice, to me, a change in success. And I've actually used that model more now than I have for workshops. I do pop-ups more often. In 2023, November 2023, a colleague noticed something in the Library Juice Academy emails and shared that they were doing kind of a class for several weeks. And so I took that class. It was Zines for Critical Reflection and Pedagogy. And I just wanted to give a shout out to that class. It was really enjoyable to kind of hear other librarians from all over kind of talking about how they're using zines and ideas. I will say the majority of them were brand new to zines, but it was still neat to kind of just be able to talk with people weekly. And it wasn't just weekly, it was throughout the week. And we had little assignments that kind of got us thinking, and tons of reading. There were so many good reading resources that just got me thinking about zines and different ways I could use zines. One of the biggest things that came out of that is, I think for me, was just how I can keep using zines and libraries. And in December of 2023 and in May, twice now I've done pop-ups for finals activities like stress relief. I've done pop-ups just saying, like, my little phrase is zine a little zine with me, and just inviting people to stop and de-stress a little bit. This most recent one in May, there was a faculty member from the visualization and performing arts getting coffee, and she came over and she saw it. She's like, what is this? And she sat down and she spent like 30 minutes like she's like, I really should be grading, but I would much prefer to be doing this. So she had her coffee and her croissant and made a zine. And so yeah, I thought that was fun, that it wasn't just students that were stopping by. We all need a de-stressor, I feel like. So what's next? I think that's kind of what I've been thinking about, especially with that class that I took. It's really been like, of course, I have tons of ideas all the time of the ways I could extend it, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be presenting again about some of the things in the future. I do want to show here's some more lessons learned evolution. This first cart, it was my first zine cart, my arts and crafts cart, where I could organize some of my materials. And I loved this one. This one was donated by my supervisor. Her daughter was aging out of using it, and so I wiped off the chalkboard tape and added my own labels and cleaned it up, and it became my zine cart. I will say those wheels didn't like to travel in the library, much less outside, and I had bigger ideas to do outside the libraries. And so we repurposed this larger cart. It was once like a laptop iPad cart. But now it is my bigger, better zine cart that has already traveled across campus in the rain, and it got there beautifully. But I will say both versions, one of the things that works really well is that I can pull that entire shelf out in the first one, or I can pull out the bins and put those out. So I generally, like, when I go to set up, I pull everything out and I have like a table that's just like my craft cart or my zine cart table, that's just so that they can see everything and they can go grab something and take it back. And I will say, lessons learned, as many times as you can remind them to please put things back where they got them, just know that's not going to happen, regardless of if it's your audience is undergrads, high school students, or full professors. You're going to have to do some reorganization. So with that in mind, to kind of give you, I have all sorts of things. Like anytime I'm at the store and I see something like, ooh, that's cool, like I might add it. Like I've got fun stickers, all sorts of things. But I want you to think about, I have so many things in my zine supply cart. What do you think has become a super popular item to try to integrate into zines? Like I have it, and every time I do it, somebody wants to. So pop in the chat or feel free to unmute if you'd like. But what are some things that you would be like, oh my gosh, I want to put that in my zine? Think craft supplies, think on stickers, stamps, maybe. What else? What do people think? Sticker addict. Yeah, stickers are super hot right now. People love them, but I will say that's not the thing that is like it's really, to me, it's funny how much people get into using this. We have a winner, googly eyes. So yeah, the thing that like I had them because I feel like you always should have emergency googly eyes on you at all times. And so I had them in the car, and they have become a staple. Like I have to kind of keep them. And we actually did about a year or two ago, I think we did a round robin where we were explaining our jobs to our colleagues, like in other departments, and each of us in our learning and engagement department did a little station, and I had a zine making station, and I think we had like 2.5 minutes, so it was quick, dirty. But because I had noticed that the googly eyes were so popular, I actually did a challenge every time they came up. I was like, anybody that incorporates googly eyes into their zine gets bonus points that don't count for anything. But many people were able to fit. And I will say that the faculty member that stopped and did one, she also had um, the googly eyes. Ah, yes, everything everywhere now. But she had the googly eyes in the middle of, I think it was part of a flower, and I thought it was funny that because I don't normally issue that challenge, but every time people or they gravitate towards the googly eyes, I love it. Yesterday, or not yesterday, last week we didn't do zine making, but I brought the card out, the arts and crafts. We were doing an activity with our gateway students, and we let them know like they had to create some kind of something, and we were like, we have all sorts of stuff over there. And one girl turns to me, she's like, "You got glitter?" And I was like, "Of course I've got glitter. I've got glitter glue." So another thing I think is just do some fun stuff just for the novelty of it. You never know what kind of things you might inspire with it. I will, one of the most recent pop-up ones I did, I got all that stuff right. This guy walks up and he was like super excited. I was like, "Can I help you find anything?" He was like, "Do you have a pencil?" And I was like, "I absolutely do not. I do not have a regular #2 pencil. I had tons of color pencils, but I did not." I was like, adding that to the list. So, but also have some fun stuff. I've got scented glue sticks. People always love Mr. Sketch, the scented markers. It's always fun to hear the conversations of what's the best scent, what's the worst. One of the yellows is the best, one of the yellows is the worst, in my opinion. So, but have fun with it, I think, is the important thing. Ideas for the future, some of the things that kind of came out of that class that I took, and just things that kind of some of my dreams, is I would love to kind of have like a traveling zine library. I know we have some in our special collections, but I would like some. I envision myself creating some of these, but I also think I could invite like student workers or participants in zine workshops, maybe even, or some of my colleagues to create zines. The first one that I really need to make is, what is a zine? Like, I would just want to create a quick thing that I can show off, and be like, boom, this is what a zine is, that kind of encapsulates a lot of those ideas, to help them understand that what they can truly do when they're at the pop-up. But I also think there's so many opportunities. Would love to do like a Chances Chat series with like information literacy topics, or showing off some of our resources and services, so that as they're coming up, they can kind of get ideas of like, this is what I could do when I'm creating a zine, but also they might be learning a little bit about the library. So that's one of my new goals, things that I would like to do with zines. All right. So if you happen to have a sheet of paper, don't feel like you have to, don't hurt yourself running to try to get one or anything, but if you happen to have one close to you, I am just going to show you the video. I don't have a lot of time to spend on this, but if you happen to have it, feel free to follow along. I have this linked to multiple places, including it's on our zine making lib guide that I'm going to share at the end. So you can also just Google how to make a zine and find one. But this one, I like it because it's 60 seconds. And so like in the workshops, I'll show it and I'll play it 4 or 5 times so people can kind of go through and as they're doing their folds. But I'm just going to show it once just so you can kind of see it. I know that's not really time to do it, but it gives you the idea of how simple, hopefully, that it can be. I will say the very first couple of times it's awkward until you kind of get the folds down and figure it out. But once you've done it and kind of get it into like you understand how it works, you can fold quite a few pretty quickly. But before I start, I do want to say that this this is one way to use a single sheet of paper to make. It's essentially, you'll have a front cover, a back cover, and then 6 pages. And so here is what I often do if I'm in a physical space is, let me stop share for a moment so y'all can see me a little bit bigger, hopefully. Is I will often I'll create get a huge sheet of paper, and maybe not. You'll at least get the idea. But I make it big so they can see me as I do it with them, and we can do it together. But I will show them that they can fold the paper, and I have like dotted lines, like where you fold it, where you cut it, that situation. But I can also put like the front and back cover, so they know where things will end up. But basically just a template, but really big so they can see it. But yeah, I found that that's helpful to have that with me when I'm showing people for the first time, just so it's a little bit easier. But this video to me, whoops, I guess I should share again. All right.
Hi, how are you today? Oh, well, would you like to take a survey? Hi, I'm the librarian.
All right, so hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how quickly you can do it. I will say you can't do it live in 60 seconds, but it's still pretty simple. Basically, you fold the paper hot dog style, and then open it up and do it hamburger twice. And that creates 8 rectangles. Then you open it up again to where it's just the where it's folded once, and then you cut down the middle. And then you open it back up and push in, and you've got a nice quick little zine. I will say on my zine LibGuide, I also have, there's one where you can turn a single sheet of paper into, I think it's like a 12-page zine, and it's a zigzag. It's way more complicated. This is the one that I use the most. I will often have a bunch of pre-made ones like ready to go. I don't make them this big usually. I do the single 8.5 by 11, but I'll have them ready to go. Sometimes, like if I'm trying to show them how to make zines, I'll leave them unfolded. But if I'm doing a pop-up and I know that they may only have like a minute or two to engage, I'll pre-fold some, but then I'll also have like my example larger ones to show them. That way, if they want to create them later, and I show them the guide, because there's lots of other ways. You can also just do like a single sheet of paper folded and have multiple, keep adding pages folding it. There's no rules. It can be a full sheet of paper that you staple together like a zine. There truly are no rules, but I will say that this is the kind of one that I show off the most, is that single sheet of paper, because I love it. Because once you've designed it, you can feed it through a copy machine and you've got tons of copies of your zine ready to fold. But now I know like we're in virtual land, so I want to give us a little bit of time to create. I want to work on a digital zine. So if you are able to, I know we've got all sorts of different device situations. So if you're unable to, feel free to come back to this, and you are welcome to add to it later. But I've got it's been essentially a Google Slides document that you can add to. The way I've kind of envisioned it is I've got a few questions on the first few slides. So what would you like to make a zine about? And once again, this doesn't have to be library related. It could be, but it could also just be like something that you're really interested, you're an expert at. Maybe you've got something to say. Zines are a perfect way to say that. If you have any links to any digital zines that you like or enjoy, please feel free to add those in. I'm going to share some from our collections. I found a Spock one the other day that I was like, ooh, that's cool. How could you use zines in your library? So these are questions you can answer. But I also invite you to add a whole slide for yourself. And maybe you can map out a page or storyboard a zine that you'd like to create. But I've got a few minutes here that you're welcome to kind of get creative, add some funny memes or GIFs or whatever you like, words, poetry, make a zine poem, acrostic zine poem, you know. Find some virtual googly eyes, whatever works. I invite you, like I said though, if you're not able to, feel free to watch some of the creativity. As I notice stuff being added in, I'll scroll up and down. But you're also welcome to add to it later. I wanted us to have an opportunity to share some of our experiences. You can also, if you're not able to do that or don't want to, you can also unmute. I open the floor for questions or people sharing things that they've done as well. But feel free to keep adding to that collaborative zine, but also feel free to unmute and ask questions or pop them in the chat. Yay, I found y'all again. Y'all disappeared for a little. And yeah, feel free to add new text boxes if you need to. Let's make it our own, whatever's easiest to.
While we're kind of waiting, there was a question from Vappy about, have you talked to Jeremy or Krista about having any of the zines from these events archived?
I have not. Well, maybe when I originally talked to Jeremy a while back and kind of went over and looked at some of the collection, I feel like I probably brought that up as a want at some point, but I don't think I haven't taken it from there. I've been adding them to any of the ones like the collaborative ones that I've done. I've been adding digitally to scanning and digitizing them to the LibGuide, but I think it would be cool to kind of add them to the archives if they're interested. Excuse me. Let me share. Cataloging questions. Where are the zines in a library catalog? I'm not a librarian. I will, if any cataloging folks in the room want to answer that, I will say the ones that what I know are a lot of ours are in our Oak Trust, the ones that have been donated and digitized in Cushing. So those are going to be some of the ones, the digitized ones that I've shared. But we also have some that are in like our Cushing, like the special collections, where you would like pull a folder and do like a special collections request more traditionally. So I know that we have both physical zines and digitized, and I'm going to share in the chat. And I'm also going to see if it will let me pull it up real quick. Just an example of what that looks like. I noticed this one came up when I was looking for something, but we've got Spock. Looks like it was hand-drawn 1968. But we also have, that is, I believe, a part of this larger collection. So yeah, so this has quite a few different things. So just wanted to share that as kind of an example of what that would look like. Wow. Sorry, that was kind of amazing. 8 hours for a zine. That's dedication. Saying that we have a zine called Alien Brothers #1 that a patron once drove 8 hours to see. D space, yes. Oh, wow. That is a big zine. So saying that it was over an inch thick. So that shows the variety. I will say when I was flipping through some of the ones in our collection, the physical collection that Jeremy was showing off, the one that I fell in love with immediately was literally just photos of librarians' cats. So I think that I was like, yes, they have an audience and another librarian. Yeah. All right, let's see some of the stuff that's learning by playing, our popular reading collection. Ooh, that'd be cool. We just kind of reinstated our bestseller collection. That might be a fun way to show off some of it. Also to promote like summer reading, even in an academic library. Ooh, APA citation. That makes me think of, do I need to create a RefWorks zine? As many RefWorks workshops that I've done. Maybe I should do a mix, do zine making RefWorks. Chop up your citations and put them together. Um, K-dramas, I love it. And music. Thank y'all for sharing. I'm going to be spending all sorts of time looking through that. And I feel like every time I do kind of like a themed, like when I've done it for Hispanic Heritage Month, for Asian, Pacific Islander, I often go out and try to find new digital, because there's almost always new digital content that I can find and show off just to let them explore. Sometimes I just link it, but I'll often like bring up the page and kind of show them like just to kind of give you something to think about. And so there's so many things out there, digitized content that's fun. And when I know I mentioned like zines in a that I kind of started at the beginning, like March 2020. I often thought about kind of what would it look like to do a zine making workshop like digitized, and there's actually several things out there that are almost specifically designed for zine making in a virtual environment. Most of the ones I found that I really liked were like paid services, so I did not explore them further, but just know that those exist. Yeah, any questions that people have? I know we're running
I'm going to
low on
jump in
time.
real quick, and
Yeah.
I put the session survey in the chat. So
Sweet.
please fill out that survey if you get a chance.
Chance, I have a question for you. Do you
Yeah.
find time that you have like that you have to be inspiring or supportive of students who are like, oh, I'm not that creative, like, or if they get that little perfectionist mindset, like they're like, oh, I messed up. So like, how do you mitigate some of that stuff?
I've gotten that. I will say I get that more from the adults. Like when I did it at a conference, they were like, I'm not an artist. And they had the most beautiful zine page in the entire room. They weren't an artist. They were totally an artist. So I feel like I lead by example with that a lot, because I often will make mistakes. Like the folding, if you don't do it really precise, like if you have it off by like a millimeter, then like it's harder to push in and it doesn't work. And I'm like, that's okay. Like it didn't, like you get better at it the more you do. But I think having that conversation, being ready for that's a good question, because people will say that like, oh, and that's why I try to have a variety of like, here's a completely blank one. Here's one with page numbers if you want to kind of know how to plan it out. And I'll give them like, here's the blank one with page numbers that you can plan out, and then you can add it to the complete blank one. Or but I think letting them have the space to kind of make mistakes or to make it as messy, there are no rules. So like if they want to just handwrite like words on a page, they can do that. If they want to get more creative and for the people that are like, I can't draw or I don't want to do it, I'm like, I've got stickers, I've got googly eyes, so they can some of that is planning that in there as well. Like it truly doesn't have to follow any rhyme or reason. They can type it, they can create it if they feel more comfortable in a digital space. So that's why I love zines, because the flexibility there of There are no mistakes with it. It's only a draft then if it's truly unrecoverable. Thank you all so much. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or ideas. My email address is zmedzo@library.tama.edu. And you can follow me on X or Twitter @librarymedlin. And my Instagram is @ChanceTheLibrarian. And also, I just wanted to share that link to the LibGuide. It's tamu.libguides.com/zine making. And that has like all the videos that I've like shared today as well. So.
Cool. Thank you, Chance. It's a great presentation, and thank you everyone for attending. And I believe this is the last session of the day, so I guess we will see everyone tomorrow morning.
Thanks, y'all. It's funny.